So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to set up our character to actually have some sort of body. I'm going to go to my content browser, I'm going to create a new folder, and it's just going to be called Assets. And within the Assets folder, I'm going to create another new folder called Character. Actually, not Character, let's call it Knight. This way we can split things up a little bit. Now, I'm going to go to the folder that you should have as your resources, and we're going to be importing the assets here. So to do this, I'm going to import splayer character 2. And now, when they import, it's going to say skeletal mesh, yes, import mesh, yes. And I'm going to go through and I'm just going to make sure everything is set correctly. It seems like we're good. And now I'm going to hit import. Now, it's going to, on import, automatically create a skeleton as well as a physics asset. Now, word of warning, we're not going to go into physics assets in this presentation. Suffice to say, auto-generated physics assets can be questionable at best. So beware that if we look at them, sometimes they're okay, but sometimes they're not. So just be aware that they're somewhat unreliable. Now this has gone ahead and it's already created a material for us, so I'm going to keep that. And instead I'm just going to call this m_Knight master. Okay? So we have our character, and here's what she looks like. Ta-da! Now, given that we have this going, where to from here? Well, let's go back to our content browser. Let's import the textures that we're going to require, and we'll go from there. So back to here, I'm going to now import the player diffuse, the mask as well, and this normal. Okay? Okay, so here we have the basics of our character. We have the mesh, which is the 3D model itself. We have the physics asset, which represents its simplified collision. We then have the skeleton, which is what we use for the actual animations. So animations are applied to a skeleton, and every character has a skeleton. We then have the diffuse texture, which is the color, masks, which denotes in this case certain regions of the character, and then we have a normal map. Okay? Now in this situation, we're going to set up a very, very basic material for our character. It's nothing too fancy, so I'm going to double click on Knight Master, and if I drag this over to here, first off I'm going to delete what's there and I'm going to start anew. Okay? Now I'm going to hit T and left click, and let's go ahead and add the diffuse texture that we just imported. So it's T_player_D. And if I click on it in the content browser, I can then just click on this little arrow to automatically apply it. Now before I continue, you'll notice that this ball is not a character. There's a great way to fix that. If I go to my content browser and I click on the character mesh and then I go back to here, I can select this little teapot and it will replace it with my character, okay? Which means I can actually see what's going on. So, first off, I'm going to get the color and I'm just going to apply that as base color. At which point I'm going to go and add the normal map as well. So again, click on normal, hold down T and left click. That's our basic normal map. And now that I've done that, I'm also going to go and set up the rest of the detailing. Now in this situation, what I'm going to do is I would usually set about doing the masks, but for the time being, I'm just going to get this up and saved, and I'm going to apply it to what we have in the world, okay? So to do that, what I need to do is go to my character base, there it is. I'm going to delete our barrel, good night sweet prince. Select the mesh component that we already have, and I'm going to set this to use our character. Now, a few things wrong with this component, I'm sure you can spot a couple of them. First and foremost, she should be down here. She should be facing the arrow, so I'm going to hit spacebar and rotate her into the correct direction. Also, our capsule component is slightly too big, so I'm just going to decrease the half height to say 70, and then I'm going to lower her down a little bit more, just so that her feet are at the base. Okay? That's good enough. Now, if I were to hit compile and save, And actually just simulating is fine. So simulate. We have our character and she's in here. And after a couple of seconds, she'll do that. Now, what's wrong with this? So, the big issue here is quite straightforward, and that is that right now she's not animating. So we need to look at how animation systems work. As well as that, we're also going to need to set up some way to differentiate different players from one another, because I want to use these knights as the enemies as well as the friendlies. So what we can do is we could set up her hairstyle to actually be a different type of character each time. Because see how she has this large brown hair? How about we change that depending on the type of player that it is? So, how do we do that? I'll show you. If I was to hit T, and I was to open up the masks, see we have this T player M that we imported? This is essentially, I'm just going to set it to the color for the time being. If you look at it, you can see that wherever it's black, it's her skin. Wherever it is red, it's the metal. And wherever it is green, and this is the important one, it's her hair. Okay? So, what does this mean? This means if we get the green channel, we can use that to interpolate between two different colors and have different hairstyles every time. So I'm going to hold down L and left click, and I'm going to run the green channel into the alpha of this lerp. And all I'm going to say is whenever you are black, which on the green channel will be, I'll preview it for you. Whenever you're black, you're the rest of the body. Whenever it's white, it's the hair. So I'm going to connect this to the black node. And now I'm going to set up the texture. I'm going to overlay. I'm going to grab the coloring from the hair, and I'm going to do a blend overlay. If you're used to Photoshop, then you'll know what this means. And I'm going to connect a vector by holding down V, which is going to be the color. So I'm just going to call this hair color. And by default, let's make her hair that red. Okay, you'll do. Plug that into the blend, and then connect you to here. I'm now going to connect this to that, and I'm going to stop previewing the node so we can see it with the normals and lighting. So see how that works? Now anything that this variable is set to is going to change her hairstyle around. Green, blue, yellow. Okay? Okay. So we're all set up and we've got ourselves a very basic character, and she's going to be our knight. Now, we've got the basics in there, so the next step is going to be setting up animations for her.